Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and happy fall. My name is Shelby, and on behalf of Twill, I am thrilled to welcome you to today's webinar, Set Healthy Boundaries and Make Time for Self-Care. I'd like to thank you for being here and trusting us with your time. Today's topic is one that many of you have requested we speak to. There's a pretty steady consensus around the role boundaries and self-care play in helping preserve our well-being. But in the hustle bustle and demands of our everyday lives, these practices can feel luxurious, right? Sometimes even largely out of reach. Fortunately, neither of these have to be the case. In today's webinar, our panelists will be covering ways to say no with kindness and without guilt, to arrange your schedule to start setting healthy boundaries, and to use self-care practices to fuel work and nourish relationships. I'm honored to host Stella Grisant, who I will be introducing in just a moment. And while we give everyone a minute to sign on today, I'd love to know a little bit about you. If you'd like, please share your name and where you're calling in from in the chat. We have Ashley from California, South Carolina, Don from Vermont. I see Virginia, Connecticut, Santa Fe, Stowe, Florida, my hometown, London, Cambridge, Georgia, Central Virginia, Arizona, Oregon, New Jersey. Wow, incredible. I'm so happy that you could all be here today. We value the presence of this audience joining in to connect through learning. Before we get started, I'm just going to go over a few details. Today's webinar will be recorded and available on our content channel, The Upside, in just a few days. The recording link will be sent to all who have registered using the exact same email that you used to sign up. Please feel free to share that with anyone who couldn't be here with us live today. We'll be opening it up for a Q&A at the end of today's presentation, so please stay tuned for that and write your questions using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screens. We're going to try our very best to address them all. There's a really neat upvote function, so if there's a question that you'd really like to see answered, make sure that you upvote it. We will not be sharing a separate copy of the PowerPoint presentation today, but again, you'll be able to view the recording on demand and at your convenience later on. If you have any questions, please feel free to email team@twill.health. And with that, I would like to introduce our expert today. Welcome, Stella Grisant. I'm going to add you to our spotlight here. Stella Grisant is a positive psychology expert and executive coach. She's the creator of the Work Happiness Method, designed to help people reignite from within to work happier and live better. And with that, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome, Shelby. It's so great to be back at Twill, formerly Happify. It's so exciting to see how much you guys have grown, and it's so wonderful to be back with all of you. I know it's been a while. Woo. So this topic is super juicy, right? If there's anything that the pandemic has taught us, it's that I think we could all use a little bit of healthier boundaries, right? And I think that's a big driver for why so much burnout has happened, right? And we know that over 50 million people have left their jobs during the Great Resignation. I'm just curious, please put in the chat, yes, if you were one of those 50 plus million people who changed jobs during the Great Resignation. Yes, okay, we have a few. Yes, oh, Jim, perfect. Well, I hope you all are happy in your new jobs. This is the deal. Everyone was so shocked, but actually, since Gallup has been reporting on employee engagement for over 20 years, about 70% of employees have been disengaged for over 20 years. And also, even before the pandemic, we had about 68% of people being always or sometimes burnt out pre-pandemic. So I am not surprised to see that so many people have left their jobs. And one of the things I tell my clients when they're considering leaving because they're feeling so burnt out and so frustrated, I say, you know what? Now's a really wonderful space for you to occupy, for you to experiment with, because if you're kind of thinking about leaving, why not try growing? Why not try leaning into these new skills that might help you no matter where you go, right? And developing healthy boundaries, I think, is one of those because sometimes, the challenges follow you. You change your circumstances, but it still end up feeling the same way. And so I'm so excited to share this program with you today. It's part of my 5-week experience called the Work Happiness Method. I am particularly passionate about this topic because I particularly need help on it myself. This is something I've struggled with for a long time, and I've just seen how much it's impacted me and how it's helped me grow. And I'm excited to share with you. So let's go ahead and dig in. I'm going to share my slides. So tell me if this resonates with you because this described me to a T. Do you find yourself automatically putting other people first in a way that doesn't feel quite right? Give me a yes if you've done that in the past or that's something that you do now. I'm seeing some yeses. I'm seeing some familiar names. Great to see you guys here. Yes, every time. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. My screen is blowing up. How about this? Do you struggle having asking for help or accepting help? Can I see a yes for that? I'm seeing an oh yes. I'm seeing a yes. I'm seeing some exclamation points. Yes, yes, yes. All right, for sure. Mostly at work. Okay. What about feeling trapped by your obligation to take care of others? Do you feel trapped by your obligation to take care of others? Maybe it's family, maybe it's fellow colleagues, maybe you're constantly swooping in to help them save the day. Anybody? Does this? I'm seeing lots of thumbs up. Yes. Adele is saying, yes, I'm a caretaker with my family. Yes, that is so, so hard. I totally understand. Um, it's the hardest work. It's the hardest work. What about worrying to be an inconvenience or disappointment to others? So maybe you're doing mental gymnastics just to make sure everyone's okay. Maybe you feel like you have to walk on eggshells because you don't want, to ruffle anyone's feathers. Anybody do that all the time? I'm seeing. I am done with that. Good for you. Good for you. I'm glad. I'm glad. What about saying yes to things you later regret? Anybody here struggle with saying no? I'm seeing a thumbs up. Yes, all capital letters by Jennifer. 100%. Okay. All right. So it looks like we're all in the right place. What I'd like to do actually is launch a poll because I just would love to see the numbers. I'm seeing overwhelming chat blow up, but I would love to see the numbers. How many of you struggle with healthy boundaries because of your people pleasing tendencies? Go ahead and give me a yes, no, or sometimes real quick, because I just want to see a number based on the group we have here. I think that would be helpful. Go ahead and fill out that poll that just popped up on your screen. So I will tell you, I used to check off yes to all of these, and I have made tremendous strides in developing healthy boundaries, but it's always a choice. And I still have to work at it and I still have to choose them every single time. So, how many do we have? Oh my goodness. So, we have 68% of people saying yes, they struggle with healthy boundaries because of people pleasing tendencies, and 30% saying sometimes, and 2% saying no. Okay. All right. So, kind of what I thought. All right. So here's the deal. When we do that people pleasing behavior, when we put other people first, which in some ways is virtuous, right? To be of service. But when we do it chronically and neglect our own needs, we put ourselves at risk for burnout. Right? When we chronically ignore our feelings and how we feel about a situation and what we really want to do or what we really want to need, we are putting ourselves at risk for burnout. So, I want to talk about burnout real quick. So, burnout is more than just feeling stressed, and it's something that happens over time. It's not something that develops just, with a week of pulling all nighters. It's a slow drip. And the World Health Organization has classified burnout as a syndrome. And there are three major components. One is exhaustion, which is just emotionally and physically exhausted. We know that people who are burnt out are 23% more likely to visit the emergency room, 63% more likely to take a sick day. We also see a level of self efficacy go down. So people are feeling not as confident in their skills. They feel they're questioning their capabilities. I know when I suffered from burnout multiple times, even though on the outside it looked like I was maintaining my performance, because it was such a struggle for me to do what I need to do, I actually felt like a shame. I felt a level of imposter syndrome starting to grow because it was taking so much for me to muster the strength to do what I had to do. So even though on the outside, no one maybe noticed, on the inside, I started to feel really insecure because it was just so hard. Madeline is saying that's 100% me. Yep. I get you, Madeline. And then there's also this level of cynicism. So I remember in my very first job when I was working in advertising, I was just bright eyed, bushy tailed, so excited to do this. And in a matter of years, I became jaded and cynical and just very negative, not who I was. I'm seeing that as me. Yes, advertising is brutal. I agree. So these are the components that we see expressing themselves when someone is burnt out. And right now, from the pandemic, we know that there's so many different numbers being tossed out, but 76% of people reporting that they feel burnt out. Now, one simple explanation for how burnout happens is the jobs demands resource model, where basically it explains that we get burnt out because we have an imbalance between our demands and our resources. So, demands are anything that deplete your energy. For example, lack of support, right? Which, if there's been a lot of turmoil in the marketplace, not enough staff, that can happen. Unfair work conditions, unclear role or expectations, conflict, unmanageable workload, right? So all of those are reasons why we might feel drained, but this is all subjective because what might be a drain for one person might be energizing to another. So for someone who really likes to carve out their own path, maybe they don't need clear roles and expectations. They love that freedom, right? So it's really subjective. And then what we want to balance out those demands are the things that energize us. Again, subjective, but we know that high quality relationships really are important at work. Feedback and recognition, regular feedback and recognition, having psychological safety, so being able to speak up, disagree without being penalized in a big way, having a sense of meaning and purpose at work, having opportunities to learn and grow. These are all examples of what can really give you fuel. So the good news here is that it's not about how demanding your job is. It's about how resourced you feel, because you can increase the demands in terms of what you're handling, right? And as you grow, you're handling bigger and bigger demands, right? But what we want to do is make sure that you're growing your resources. So that's the question, is how do I build more job resources? So the word self-care has been tossed around a lot, right, in the pandemic and even before. But what I want to distinguish is the difference between self-care and self-soothing, because sometimes it's really fuzzy and we engage in a behavior that actually can deplete us instead of doing the opposite. So self-soothing activities are activities that take the edge off. They're activities that help us escape and help us just zone out a little bit, which we all need and have needed, right? So it could be a Netflix marathon, it could be a glass of wine or two, it could be a little shopping, right? So, what are some of the things that you guys do for self soothing? Let me see some examples. So, golf is out of the question? No, I wouldn't say that. So, here's the thing. We all need self-soothing activities. But the thing is, it's like when we overdo it, right? When we overdo the binging of TV and the ice cream and the Netflix, when we overdo it and it leaves us feeling icky, that's the danger, right? So what we want to do is make sure we're also engaging in self-care. And so self-care are the activities that energize us. And again, these are subjective for the most part, but ultimately it's what activities support your long-term well-being? What activities help you stay in your reality, right? So as our demands grow, we need to be able to stay and face them, right? And so what is that that's really supporting you? So that could be scheduling that dental appointment that you've been avoiding. That could be choosing a smoothie instead of a third coffee, right? That could be breath work. I'm seeing Kate say that could be a nap. Writing, I'm seeing beautiful journaling. I love it. You guys, I love that you're so engaged. I didn't even have to ask. I love this. I'm seeing walks or country drives, beautiful nature, meal prepping. Oh, meal prepping. I so aspire to be meal prepping. Being outside, talking to a loved one. Yes, our relationships are a form of self-care. In fact, relationships are the number one predictor of our happiness. So meditation, all of these are great, great, great. Walking my dog, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So one thing that we can do to build up those resources is to self-care. And here's the trick. You may be actually doing a lot of self-care, but not giving yourself credit. And so you may actually be very well resourced, but not acknowledging it. So I love to have my clients do a little energy inventory throughout the week and just log what's the stuff that's draining and what's the stuff that's energizing, because it's very easy for us to focus on what's wrong, but not always on what's right. And sometimes it's just the acknowledgement of what's right and what is supporting you can make all the difference, because we have this negativity bias, all of us, where our brains just have to focus on what's wrong, bad, or threatening. And so it's much easier for us to focus on all of the demands. Okay. So let's talk about boundaries, right? So I define boundaries as an agreement that you've created with yourself or others to more easily express your values so that you can be who you want to be, right? So ease is one of the key words here, because you can be who you want to be and you can express your values, but you can do it with like 100-pound backpack walking up a really steep hill, or you could do it with one of those like glidey suitcases just strolling around, right? So I'd rather go for ease, and boundaries help make us feel more comfortable. That's the goal, is that they help us feel more comfortable so that we can focus on the stuff that's important. And so that's what it's about. That's what it's about. And I say it's an agreement because usually when it comes to boundaries, there's some inner conflict, right? There's I want to go out with all my colleagues after work, but I also want to rest because I'm freaking tired. Or I so want to take the lead on that project, but I also have all these other projects and I'm not going to have any time with my kids if I take the lead on this, right? So there's always a conflict. And so it's really about coming to agreement from within and then deciding what's going to support me in being who I ultimately want to be. So one of the things that I teach in the work happiness method, and I think I saw some folks who've done that here. Give me a yes if you've done the work happiness method, or if you're doing it now. I think I saw Terry here. Yay! So hi, Sydney. Yes. Rebecca, hi. Okay, so we talk about your vision and your values, because when you get clear on those things, then it's easier for you to know which boundaries to set. So let's talk about what weakens boundaries. Oh my goodness. Okay, so one is compromise. We think of compromise as a virtuous thing, as a good thing. So, for example, if you're going to talk about dinner and it's about Japanese or pizza and you really want sushi, but everyone else wants pizza and you're like, all right, fine, whatever. I'll grab sushi for dinner, the next night. That's okay. That's fine compromise. But if you're compromising on your values and on the very guideposts that help you stay and be in integrity with yourself, then that's a problem, right? So, if, for example, one of your values is excellent work, right? If you have a high standard of excellence and you're being asked to turn things around really, really, really fast, and that's not allowing you to make sure that quality is excellent, and then you feel really icky about what you're doing, then that's a compromise that is not cool, right? So you're weak, that's weakening your boundaries, right? And that's not helping you be who you want to be at work. So for the sake of being agreeable, when we modify what's important to us, that is not good, right? Jasmine's saying, oh my God, yes, major problem for me. All right. Now, what about this one? So, this is one that my husband actually helped me realize, and it's called truth edits. Truth edits is when you don't give a person a chance to step up because you think you know what they can handle. And uh, so I've had so many clients who are like, oh, I can't talk to my boss about X, Y, and Z because they can't handle it. They're just gonna like blow up. It's gonna ruin our relationship. I shouldn't go there. And I can't tell you how many times they ended up having a healthy conversation, which is another thing that we go over in the work happiness method, is how to master those difficult conversations. And, next day, whole different world, right? So when we don't share our needs, when we don't share our truth, when we hold back and suppress our feelings and what's really important to us because the other person can't handle it, we're wronging ourselves, right? Because we're not staying in integrity with ourselves. But the other thing is, we're denying this other person a chance to step up. We're denying the leader a chance to really know how they can support their team and support the organization. We're denying our partners a chance to grow. We're denying the other person a chance to really step up. So, truth edits weaken your boundaries, withholding information about what you need because you just don't think that other person can handle it. All right. Now the third thing that really weakens our boundaries is just sacrifice, right? Which is just, all right, I'm just giving it all away because everyone else is more important. And that is very hard to unwind. Oftentimes, and like, who isn't dealing with a little bit of self-worth issues, right? Like, who isn't? It all comes down to, am I worthy for love? Am I worthy of X, Y, and Z? We all have our own stuff to varying degrees. So this isn't something that you can switch on and off, but I want you to become aware of it. And and you also talked about this with your therapist. Oh my God, we are so aligned. Great. So this isn't one that I'm saying you can turn on and off easily. In fact, especially if this is coming from childhood or coming from past experiences, right? It's going to take work. But what we want to do is just be aware of what's holding us back from really honoring ourselves and to start to seek out proof that that's no longer the case, right? That I am worthy of being happy. I am worthy of being healthy. I am worthy of having free time. I am worthy of having some peace and joy. I am worthy of um of taking a break or of indulging, right? I am worthy of all those things. So, boundaries, when we think about boundaries, usually people think about just the stuff that they want to keep out in a way, but they're also about making sure that you keep the stuff that you want close, right? So, it's not just about stopping, it's also about containing and cultivating. And Katie, you stole the words out of my mouth because it does take patience. That is the next slide. Oh my God, you guys are amazing. So why is it so hard? Well, one, it's hard to set boundaries because it's hard to know where they even belong in the first place. If you didn't grow up with a good role model around boundaries, which this is kind of like a new thing that we're talking about, right? In this generation, past generations, this wasn't even a conversation. So it's hard to have role models for who does it really well. Also, if we struggle with that sense of worthiness, which takes work to undo, that can also be hard, right? And it's scary because when we set up a boundary, we risk disappointing someone, right? And we risk them being upset. We risk them not getting their way. And if we are of the people pleasing sort, which it looks like the majority of us are here, this can feel very wrong, right? So how do we navigate this? Um, so back to Katie, who's already predicting my slides. It takes patience and it takes timing. And like I said at the beginning of this is something I'm working on, and I'm always working on it. I wish I could say that. I wish I could say that it's become second nature. It's definitely become a lot easier. Um, but it's always a choice I'm making because my automatic response is to make sure everyone else in the room is okay. And so I wish it didn't take so much patience and timing, and that it wasn't so hard. But it takes patience, one, because especially if it involves other people, it may take them a while to understand that you're changing and that you're doing things differently, right? It might take some repetition, it might take some enforcement, right? It also may take your letting go. And especially if you're like to control things, anybody here like to be in control, right? You might have to let other people fail, right? So, what does that look like? Perfect example, my husband and I, when it was just with our first child, we decided he would be putting her to bed and I would be doing the dishes at night. And every night after we made that boundary, the both of us agreed. Every night it was like 8 o'clock, and I was telling my husband, it's 8 o'clock, it's time for bedtime. As if my husband is not a grown man and does not know how to tell time. I was getting involved, right? So I got in my own way, right? How many of you set up boundaries and processes and then get in there, right? Tell them how to do it right. How many of you do that? Yes, Jasmine's me. Yes, yes, right? I'm seeing yeses, right? And so then we're just weakening those boundaries. And then we find ourselves back in that same mess. So we have to let go and they will be okay. And my daughter, is doing okay and fine. Even if she goes to bed 15 minutes late or 30 minutes late, they're okay. And I think it's also hard, and it also takes a lot of patience and timing because you got to have those difficult conversations. You got to do the enforcement. You have to get back in there and have that uncomfortable moment. And man, I wish that wasn't the case, but it is. So if there is a violation of your boundaries, we got to acknowledge it. Got to acknowledge it, right? So it takes a lot of courage. So, what I would love to do with you today is practice setting some boundaries or identifying boundaries. That's what we're going to do is we're going to identify some places to set boundaries. So this is called the Boundaries Builder exercise, which I'm taking out of the Work Happiness Method. And what I want to say to you, we're not sharing the slides, but if you want the notes to today's session, also some scripts for how to say no, which we won't have time to get into all of them. I'll give you a few, but you can go to boundariesforwellness.com and then just give me your email, and then I'll automatically send you an email back with the notes for this session, like the key notes and scripts that you need, so that you have all the juicy bits to go and play with this stuff. So you can go to boundariesforwellness.com. All right. So here's what we're going to do first. The first thing I want you to do and consider is, What's one feeling that you want to experience more of? Or what's one value you want to express more deeply? So for me, my top value is vitality, feeling energized, feeling healthy, feeling strong. So that's the one that I want to bolster. That's the one I'm going to use an example for today. You guys are so on it. Thank you. Oh my God, you're making me want to like dance how engaged you are. I love this. Um, so I am seeing joy, empowerment, content, feeling like I matter, beautiful, confident, feeling valued, peace, joy. Joy is a popular one. I love that. Yes, yes, yes. Um, Feeling enough, confidence and joy. Those are the ones respected. Yes, strong, great, healthy, confident, loved. Love all of these. At ease. Oh my God, that's also a favorite of mine. Beautiful, beautiful, Rebecca. So vitality, great. I'm glad. Um, Engaged in life. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, great. So you've identified that feeling. That's step one. Now, step two is what's an experience that will help you cultivate that feeling? So, what's an activity that gets you into that zone that you just described? Now, what we're going to identify just for today, we're going to keep it really small. Just one activity that will help you get into that zone. So, for me, exercise is one activity that I really want to focus on. I really want to protect. I want to make room for. So, I'm going to create boundaries to protect that so that I can be more vital. So, for the words and the feelings that you just described, what's one activity that gets you in that zone? So I'm seeing walks, reliving my best moments, beautiful. Hugs, beautiful. Relaxing in the tub, beautiful. Running, love it. Being around people who are positive and keeping me motivated. Yes, yes. All right. So now what we're going to do, we picked our exercise. Now what we're going to do is we're going to think about all the places and ways we can set boundaries to protect and have more ease with this activity, right? So I'm going to give you some thought starters and some prompts. This is by no means complete. This is by no means something that you don't have to do all of these. These are just thought starters. I want you to pick and choose whatever resonates, whatever's easy, and throw out the rest. Okay. All right. So, one area, then this is the area I think that's most popular when we think about boundaries, is considering the people aspect of boundaries. So, who can support you in experiencing this activity, or who's getting in the way? Is there someone who's stopping you from doing it? Right. So that's the first boundary that I want you to consider. Do you need to ask for support from someone, or do you need to stop engaging with someone or diminish the amount of interactions you have with someone? For example, if I want to exercise more so that I can be more vital, I need to ask my husband to feed my daughter breakfast, because if I'm feeding my daughter breakfast, that's it. No time for working out. All right. So that's for me. That's what comes to mind for me if I want to do my morning workout. So what so think into your realm of people who can support you, or is someone getting in the way, or it could be both of them, right? So consider what relationships you need to modify to have more ease with your activity. All right. The other aspect that you can think about is timing. What do you need to change about your schedule? Right. So for me, in order to exercise in the mornings, I need to block my schedule before 9 a.m. So no 7:30 a.m. presentations, no, no nothing before 9 a.m. So I need to block time. Now, here's one that I see for clients a lot. They're in such back-to-back meetings that they have no time to think. They have no space in between. I am a big proponent of space in between, right? Of padding. So, maybe if you're looking for more peace, maybe could you consider how can you create more spaciousness in your schedule, right? giving you space to process and to think and have downtime. A lot of us are working remotely now, so all that time from commuting that kind of helped you settle down is gone, right? Now a lot of us are, because we're working remotely, we're working all hours of the day. And so maybe what we need to do is to create a boundary in time and saying, you know what, I'm actually not going to answer emails after this time. I'm going to set up an alert, an away message that says I will be checking emails in the morning during these hours, right? So, what can you do? Maybe you need to have a conversation with your boss. Maybe that's one of the people to talk about. Hey, I'm doing too much after hours, and I'd really like to start to figure out a way to contain when I respond to emails. All right. So now what we're going to think about is our thinking, our mindset. So sometimes it's not it's not our schedules, it's not the people, it's ourselves that get in the way of us, right? And I know that I have a lot of friends who are extremely athletic, almost made it to the Olympics. I never was on any team growing up. So I never identified as an athlete. And so when they tell me, oh my God, if I don't work out, I feel like crap, I'm like, "Psh, doesn't matter to me. I feel great." But I was noticing that that was not a supportive way of thinking for me, that I don't need to work out, that I don't like it, that I'm not athletic. Those weren't supportive thoughts. So instead, what I decided to adjust, because I said, Stella, you're not really helping yourself by, downplaying how much you engage in physical activity. What would be a better message is to remind yourself that you're the kind of person who takes good care of herself, right? And that's true. I'm taking my vitamins, I'm drinking my water, I'm, you know, minding my food, I'm minding my mind. So I am the kind of person that takes good care of herself. So I would like for you to fill in the blank. I'm the kind of person that blank, and maybe that's about your feeling that you want to experience more of. It might be a little bit of an aspirational statement. Maybe you're not this person 100% of the time, but you're this kind of person. So I'm the kind of person that experiences joy. I'm the kind of person that can stay peaceful in difficult moments. I'm the kind of person that takes good care of herself. I'm the kind of person that fill in the blank. I want to see with you guys, what kind of person are you? Our behaviors and our actions tend to follow how we identify with ourselves or with someone else. So, what we want to do is identify with that aspirational version of ourselves. I'm the kind of person that can stay calm in stressful times. Beautiful, 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 Susan. Um, I'm saying I'm the kind of person that can remain calm. Beautiful, Julie. Danielle says, I'm the kind of person I can go through life confidently without self-doubt. Beautiful. Don says, I'm the kind of person who enjoys the feeling after exercising. Lovely. Dion is saying, I'm the kind of person that looks for the positive in every situation. Love it, love it, love it. What does it do for you when you make this statement? I'm just curious. How do you feel when you make this statement to yourself? What does that do for you? I'm just curious. Go ahead and put that in the chat. Empowered, says Don. Yes. Powers me. Oh, empowered is like all over the place. I love it. Yes, yes, yes. Makes me feel happier, says Jim. Beautiful. Calm makes me feel calm, makes me feel strong and happy, makes me feel hopeful. Feels like my true self. It is. That is it, you guys. That is it. Beautiful, non-judgmental, feel empowered. Yes, 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 yes. So that's what we got to remind ourselves of every day is I'm the kind of person who takes good care of herself and even in your weakest moments, right? So let's say I've had, I decided I'm avoiding gluten and sugar and I have a chocolate chip cookie. Oh, and maybe I have a second chocolate chip cookie. Well, what I'll do is I'll say to myself, well, I'm the kind of person who takes good care of herself. So I'm not going to have the third. and I'm going to resume, back to my healthy habits. Because I'm the kind of person who takes good care of herself. And yeah, and every now and then I have a treat, right? Because there's something called what the hell effect. That's actually what psychologists call it, what the hell effect, which is when we fall off track, we think, oh, I've already fallen off track. I might as well go all the way, or I might as well have the whole tray and stuff my face with everything, right? And so, what we want to do is remind ourselves of what kind of person we are. So, if I didn't exercise for the whole week, well, I'm the kind of person who takes good care of herself. So, I'm actually going to do a little 10 minutes something tonight, right? All right. So another place where you can set some boundaries is just around systematizing, so you don't have to keep choosing every single time and thinking every single time something happens. So I work with a lot of leaders, and sometimes it's not so much I mean, it is a boundary issue, but what I see is there's like a lack of process. And so I had one leader in particular who had these employees who would call her for approvals. And if she literally did not pick up the phone, they would just go off and do their own thing. And it was really frustrating her. And she would tell them, please email me. And I said, it sounds like there needs to be an official reset. And it sounds like there needs to be a process, like it needs to be written out, needs to be discussed, and needs to be framed as this is how we do things versus ad hoc. And if I do not pick up the phone, this is what I expect, right? So, are there ways that you can automate things in your life so that you're organized, so that you're not thinking and you're choosing less? For me and my workout example, pre-select the classes for the week, right? Or I'm only going to use this app for my workouts this week. So I don't have to choose, am I going to do this? Am I going to do that today? Am I going to go for a walk, right? It's all set. No thinking, right? Carol says, I have a routine, but it doesn't seem to include the me time that I need. Great, Carol. So that's your boundary area, which is creating time for yourself. That is the one that maybe you want to work on, is carving out that space for you. So the next area that you might want to consider, again, you take what you like and throw out the rest, is your environment, right? So how do you make things more streamlined in your environment? How do you modify your space, your things, or even your commute to serve you better? So in my example, I'm going to find a discrete space to store my yoga mat and my weights in the living room, because if I have to go in the basement or I have to go in the garage, that is enough to distract me. And oh, where did the time go? I'm done. I don't have time to work out, right? So I need to make my environment support me. All of these boundaries are actually they are all forms of self-care, right? Because it's about ease. It's about enabling me to do and be who I want to be. It's about me. It's about resourcing myself with more ease. That's what all of these boundaries are here for. So decluttering space is a perfect example, Arlene. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So what I want to challenge you with is, which boundary is easiest for you to start with? Which boundary is easiest for you to start with? So, and what's a tiny step you can take this week? Like, if you're willing to play and if you're ready, only if you're ready, what's a tiny step you can take this week? All right. Go ahead and just acknowledge that for a moment. Look at your list. What's a tiny step that you could take towards the easiest one? So, no need to challenge yourself. Just go for the easiest low hanging fruit. Which one can you take on? And what's a micro step you can take towards that? Madeline says the self mantra seems the most doable. Beautiful, beautiful, Madeline. I love that. Staying in my lane at work. Love that, Susan. Great, 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 great. Um, Carol says, assign dinner duties to others in my household and be prepared to eat cereal. Great, 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 great. I love that. Don says, scheduling time to take care of me. Beautiful. And that includes in the meeting that I'm the kind of person that takes care of me. Yes, yes. Jasmine says, asking for support where needed. I love these guys. Signing up for yoga this Saturday. Lovely. Terry says, stick with my schedule. Beautiful. Tori says, ending social media viewing after 10. Oh, Yes. Sometimes I just have to delete the app. I've noticed sometimes it just gets out of control for me and I just delete the app for like a few weeks and then I kind of get regrounded. Arlene says, book me time and learn to close my office door. Yes, that sounds great. Great, great, great. See, you guys are inspiring each other. More people want to end social media after 10. Good, 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 good. So this is the beginning. Now, here's the thing. It will require, like I said, some patience and some timing. But sometimes all we have to do is learn to say no more often. Now, I want to give you some principles for saying no. And again, if you want, more scripts for how to say no, go to boundariesforwellness.com to get the download for today's session. But some quick principles about saying no if any of you struggle with that. And I think we established that, yes, that is the case for many of you. Saying no is saying yes to something else. So when you struggle with saying no to someone, what you want to raise in your mind's eye is, what am I saying yes to? Because that has to remind you of what's important here, right? So I'm saying yes to my well being when I choose not to go out late. I am saying yes to the excellence of my work when I am saying no to volunteering on this extra project. I am saying yes to the well-being of my children when I tell them no, they cannot have an extra piece of candy, right? So it's almost like that mantra we talked about, which is I'm the kind of person that, right? So it's reminding you, what is the bigger yes here that I am ascribing to give you that courage. And I don't feel there's any need to lie or apologize when you're saying no. I oftentimes setting your boundaries with someone else is a very short conversation. It doesn't need to be apologetic. It doesn't need to be very long. In fact, it can be direct, it can be calm, it can be assertive. That's not going to work for me right now. Um, and I'd be happy to take a look at that on Monday, right? It can be very short. Oftentimes, these conversations are just 30 seconds. Okay. And your no is actually an act of service because emotions are contagious. And so, even if you decide, fine, I'll go along, I said yes, so I need to show up and I'm doing this out of obligation and I don't really want to be here. If you show up and you don't really want to be there, that gets transmitted. We all feel those vibes, and no one wants that. No one wants you burning yourself out at the end of the day. So you're not really doing us a favor by giving us your scraps and by burning yourself out, right? So your no is an act of service by you're saying, I'm going to take care of myself. I really want to go to that birthday party, but I'm burning the candle at both ends and I really need time to take care of myself. I would love to take you out for a coffee when I can come up for air. That's that's the act of service, right? So if you have a hard time, and also one point I always like to make is, you know, telling being kind, which I know a lot of people here might say, well, I'm non-confrontational, I can't say no, and seeing it almost as virtuous to be kind and make sure everyone's okay. But being kind in the most noble of forms is sometimes telling people what they don't want to hear, right? This is what leadership is. It's sometimes telling people the hard stuff. It might be telling someone, you have broccoli in your teeth, you have toilet paper on your shoe. It's not always comfortable, but it's the most noble thing to do. And that's why sometimes a no is the most noble thing to do, right? And so if you can't say no right away, here's a quick thing that you can say that, I want you to put in your toolkit. I can see this is really important to you, and I want to make sure you have the best support. Give me a day to think about it. It can be a day, a week, a month, whatever. I'll get back to you. I'm going to look at my schedule and make sure you have the resources you need. Right. So ultimately, if you can't say no right away, create a pause. So you're not an automatic yes. This way you give yourself time to reflect and make a conscious decision instead of an automatic decision, right? So I'm going to say, if I am going to say yes, then I want to get aligned. And if I'm going to say no, it will give me time to just work up the courage to come up with what I want to say and maybe even to come up with other solutions. All right. So create that pause. And again, you can get more scripts for how to say no at boundariesforwellness.com. And that's it, my people. I am so grateful for such amazing engagement. I would love to see in the chat what resonated with you most today. What are you excited about? Like what are you going to do differently? Go ahead and share one thing for me that you are walking away with. I would love to see that. Not feeling guilty for saying no. Beautiful, beautiful. Learning, great. To pause, says Adele. Great to know that I'm not alone. Yes, 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 yes. You love the boundaries builder exercise. I'm so glad. The truth edits. I'm so glad. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, with that, I want to make sure I have time for questions. So I am going to open it up for questions.
Okay, we're going to start with a question that came in from an anonymous attendee who asks, is there a DSM terminology for burnout? I was turned down by my counselor saying that my symptoms were not valid and should go back to where I used to work.
Oh, wow. It depends what you were experiencing with the burnout, but burnout is a syndrome as classified by the World Health Organization, and there are many people who, if you are burnt out, you can actually go on medical leave if you feel that's necessary. So I don't I don't know about the DSM. I don't know what other symptoms you were experiencing, if there was like some depression involved. So those are things that might be categorized there. But uh, I would maybe go get a second opinion.
Yeah.
And go get some additional support.
Second opinions are always a good idea. Okay. Susan asks, how do I handle when I withhold a truth edit due to being unsure or assume I will not like the response from the other person?
Okay, great question. So I do a whole thing on how to master difficult conversations, and here's what I'll tell you. The most important thing about having a difficult conversation is not the words that you use, but it's the energy with which you say them. And so, if you're going to share some difficult stuff with someone, what's really important is that you come from a place of loving kindness or neutrality or curiosity or openness instead of from a place of judgment or anger or frustration or even feeling like less than or smaller than or a victim of. And so that's why I tell people to wait to have the conversation until you can be in that neutral or open place so that what you're saying really lands the way you want it to. So I would wait until you feel like you can be in that open place and ready yourself with that kind of compassion. Um, and then I don't know what the topic is, but I always think that you can start with, this is the nonviolent communication framework. Start with what happened, what, how did it make you feel? And what are your needs for, being your best at work or at home? Like, what are the needs that were violated so that they can understand how this is really impacting you? People don't always understand the impact that it has on you.
Mhm.
And then be really specific on like what's a specific behavior this person can change. So that's how I would do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Crucial Conversations, another really great book and resource. Yes.
I see some other resources being shared in the chat. Excellent. Maria asks, what weakens boundaries? It's a great question.
Yeah. So what weekends boundaries are, some of the things that we talked about is like being sacrificing your needs, assuming everyone else's are more important, compromising on your values, right? And holding back on your truth, right? Because you're worried someone else can't handle it. So those are some examples that weaken boundaries. Also, what weakens boundaries is just not reinforcing them when they're violated. So if they are violated and you let it slide, they're going to think that's okay. So they're just going to continue to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Great. I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions. Um, Matthew asks, what tips could you recommend on letting go of control in the workplace and in life?
Well, I
Control
think
relinquishing.
yeah. So in the workplace, I think it's a little different, especially if you're a leader or if you're in charge of a certain project. What you want to make sure is that whoever you're letting go to actually knows what they're doing. So you want to make sure that everyone is clear on the process and how things are done right, that they understand what success looks like, and then giving them a chance to actually do their thing. Um, and then be there for support and feedback. So it's not like you're just letting people run wilds and letting go. You want to make sure that they have a clear path. And then you will feel safe letting go. You won't feel safe letting go if you don't feel like you're in agreement with what success looks like and how to achieve it. And
Mhm.
that's why I work with a lot of teams to help them charter their vision and their values, right? How do we agree we're going to go about doing this together as a team? What does success look like? What are we ultimately all striving for? So I can understand it doesn't feel safe to let go if you haven't charted that out.
Mhm.
Um, and so that would be my work advice. Life advice, oh my goodness. Um, that's a bigger question, but I think my quickest advice for that would be to stay present, right? Because if you're staying present, that means you're totally acknowledging everything that's here and now and you're accepting it. And that is a gesture of letting go, is
Mhm.
just accepting and not trying to change what is.
Absolutely. Beautiful, Stella.
Thank you all for joining me today. And thank you, Shelby, for having me back. I'm really always glad to be here.
Well, thank you so much, Stella. It's one thing to know that these practices are important ways to preserve and even be proactive around our well-being, but it's a completely other resource to have, very accessible, actionable tools in our belt to help us carry these things out in our everyday lives. And just looking at our audience's engagement and questions and interest alone, it's clear how personally your work resonates with each of us.
Oh, thank you.
Um, for our audience, if you would like more content from the Upside on different ways to protect and preserve your health and well-being, I'm going to pop a few links into our chat right now. These will also be sent out in the follow-up email that you'll receive in about a week, which will include a recording of today's webinar. On behalf of TWIL, I'd like to extend our sincere appreciation and gratitude to you all for being here with us live today. We hope that you enjoyed it. Be sure to tune in for next month's webinar on how to survive the holidays with emotional intelligence, which you'll be able to register for in the coming weeks. So stay on the lookout. Thank you all so much for coming, and please continue to invest in your well-being. Be well.